Happening now, local headlines that we're following. Cattaraugus County sees its first COVID-19 related death. Plus, Chautauqua County's district attorney joins us live to talk about a range of topics, including Crime Victims' Rights Week and how COVID-19 is affecting his office. The news at noon starts now.
Live and on demand, this is WNY News Now.
And thanks for joining us for WNY News Now. I'm Justin Gould. The Cattaraugus County Health Department reported its first COVID-19 related death yesterday. Health Director Dr. Kevin Watkins tells us that a 77-year-old man with extensive underlying health conditions developed respiratory failure and died due to COVID-19 related complications.
It is with deep regret and our deepest condolences that we must extend to his family and to the entire Cattaraugus County community. This is something that tends to occur with individuals who contract this infection and they have underlying illnesses.
Now, Chautauqua County, meanwhile, didn't report any new cases yesterday. Officials say there are 2 active cases that remain and 22 people so far have recovered. Well, we now have passed the 800,000 coronavirus case mark. That according to Johns Hopkins University, just one day past the 3-month mark of the first reported infection in the United States. As states now work to reopen, Congress has passed a big stimulus bill to help some small businesses. Karen Kafa has the latest from Washington for us.
The bill as amended is passed.
A $480 billion package for small business, hospitals, and testing now moves from the Senate to the House.
The intent of this money was not for big public companies.
Aiming for the president's desk by the end of the week and teeing up a debate over how much more relief may be needed.
For anyone who thinks this is the last train out of the station, that is not even close to the case.
And I think it's also time to begin to think about the amount of debt that we're adding to our country and the future impact of that.
As states work out safe ways to reopen, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo says he had a productive meeting with President Trump at the White House with testing at the core.
We agreed that the state government should be responsible for managing the actual tests in their own laboratories.
Some governors are already giving businesses green lights.
They're moving along pretty quickly.
Georgia Governor Brian Kemp facing heat for signing off on businesses like gyms, nail salons, and barber shops allowed to open this Friday.
We've been very clear in the guidelines, and I think it's up to the governors and mayors to ensure that they're following the best they can each of those phases.
And sparking backlash from local officials.
The governor said no local government can implement any measures which are more strict or less strict than the executive order. I think that's irresponsible.
In Washington, I'm Karen Kafa.
All right, Karen, thank you. Dr. Robert Redfield, he's the head of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, says a second wave of the virus later this year could be more difficult than the current strand. Now, if you remember last week, President Trump unveiled suggested benchmarks for states to start easing social distancing measures, but Redfield called for state officials to continue to promote social distancing and to increase contact tracing and testing. Well, officials in Warren County, Pennsylvania are investigating the false reporting of a COVID-19 related death and a new case there in their county. In a statement released to us yesterday afternoon, they say data released earlier in the day that the county saw its first coronavirus related death was factually inaccurate. Officials say the coroner hasn't listed a COVID-19 fatality and the hospital hasn't had an additional positive test yet. They urge the community to remain calm during their investigation. Now, earlier in the day, Warren General Hospital reported to the news media 1 new positive case and that 1 person has died from the virus. So far, Warren County has collected 178 testing samples, with 110 of those coming back negative. Officials say the tests were collected in the emergency room or inpatient units at the hospital. All other tests were ordered by private non-physicians, with results being sent directly to them. Officials add that the first and only positive test of COVID-19 dates back to March. Well, Heritage Ministries Board of Directors announced Tuesday that Lisa Haglund has been named the interim CEO for the company, replacing the previous CEO, David Smeltzer. Officials with the company were not at liberty to explain specifically why Smeltzer left his position. WNY News Now reached out to Haglund this morning for comment following yesterday's announcement. She tells us that she's excited to see what the future brings for her at Heritage Ministries.
Anyone who knows me knows I have a natural amount of excitement for growth and intelligent growth. I have a passion for our people, and I always think with every company, no matter how good you are, there's the opportunity to revisit how you take care of your teams and in turn how you take care of your residents. I'm excited to look at some exciting new changes that we can do over the next year, not only with quality of care, and we're really almost one of the top providers at this point, but also with just innovative techniques. From dementia care, to when we look at our Connections program, to how we engage and offer purposeful living and how we engage families.
Heritage Ministries was founded in 1886 and has grown from its original campus in Gary to 6 locations across the state and across the United States. The Chautauqua Mall is partnering with the Salvation Army and the Chautauqua County Humane Society to now collect non-perishable items for families in need. Residents are asked to drop off non-perishable food items as well as essentials such as diapers, toilet paper, and soap, along with school supplies and dog and cat food in front of the main entrance of the mall. There is a suggested donation list posted at chautauquamall.com. And as you see from some of that video that we took this morning, while practicing safe social distancing, of course, some community members are already out donating there. It's a great sight to see. Thanks so much for joining us here for WNY News Now, as we continue to put facts over fear in our coverage of the novel coronavirus outbreak and its effects here locally. Got to say hello to Kevin, hello to Stephanie. Thanks so much for joining us. Good afternoon to David, Jamie, and Jay as well. Good to see you all in the broadcast, and we hope you're enjoying your day, whether you're an essential worker who's out there on the front lines or maybe enjoying lunch from your home office. Let's now get a check of our First Defense weather forecast. That's where we find Chief Forecaster Dakota Hunter. And Dakota, we've been practicing social distancing for quite some time, and this is the extent I get to talk to you right here.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I think we mentioned it on last week's show. Jay is in the newsroom all day. I'm stuffled over in the weather office all day. We hardly ever see each other, so this is our time to really communicate. So here's a look from the Sky Vision Camera Network that is coming from Mayville. The clouds in the sky, 34 degrees, and that wind is up a little bit west at 7. And wanted to mention this because this was interesting. Notice this bands of snow up here that is east of Buffalo? That's lake effect that came off Lake Ontario this morning. How cool is that? Lake Ontario generated a couple of bands of weak lake effect snow this morning, and that was a very interesting thing to see. Usually we don't see lake effect this late into the season, but that band extends from Lake Ontario. You can see it right there with moisture from our source region from the north and northwest with that wind coming in today, bringing in that cooler air. 44 was the high yesterday, but if you were up around 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, you didn't experience that. Most of us spent the day in the 30s yesterday, and here were the high temperatures from yesterday. 38 in Olean, 51 Dunkirk, 53 in Erie. But again, if you were not up between 2, 3, 4 o'clock, you didn't experience that. And today it's going to be another repeat day, much like it, with temperatures down to the lower to mid-30s, but at least the sun will shine for some areas today. And then we get into another chance of rain and precipitation tomorrow through the weekend. We'll talk about it in a few. Tomorrow? I'm sorry.
All right, Dakota, thank you very much. Coming up, Chautauqua County's District Attorney joins us live to talk about how the COVID-19 outbreak is impacting his office and Victims' Rights Week. Stay with us as WNY News Now continues.
With coverage that matters, this is WNY News Now.
EagleZip.com is your local one-stop shop for all of your home and business computer needs. Located on Fluvan Avenue Extension, just outside of Jamestown, EagleZip.com sells and services all brands of desktops and laptops, as well as servers and network equipment for your business. All new computer sales include transferring your data from your old computer plus a 2-year warranty. Call EagleZip.com today.
Stop by EagleZip.com today and let us make computers easy for you.
This is Christine Schuyler, Chautauqua County Public Health Director, with a very important message. We need you to make every effort to protect yourselves and our healthcare workers. If you absolutely don't need to go out, don't. If you have a mild cold or flu-like symptoms, with or without a fever, stay home. If your symptoms are severe, call your healthcare provider. Do not go to the emergency room or urgent care. Do not call 911 or go to the ER unless you are experiencing a life-threatening emergency. The best ways you can help prevent the spread of COVID-19 are to wash your hands often with soap and water, cover your cough, avoid close contact with others. Please stay home.
You're watching WNY News Now, your source for breaking news.
And welcome back to WNY News Now. Joining us on the broadcast to talk more about the COVID-19 outbreak and its effects on public safety and the legal system is Chautauqua County District Attorney Patrick Swanson. Sir, great to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, good afternoon, Justin. Thank you.
Well, we talked a few weeks ago about how the COVID-19 outbreak is impacting your office. Since then, how has it been for everyone there to adapt to the changes?
Well, obviously, crime doesn't stop. So we've had to kind of forge a way to manage the cases coming in while exercising, separation among staff members. Because as we spoke the last time about this issue, our concern is just the viability of the office and making sure that we have the people available to continue to handle cases. So we have a rotating basis where one prosecutor comes in a day and handles the arraignments. We have one legal secretary a day to open up new case files. And unfortunately, in the big push to go to the new discovery law that came into play January 1st, we got the computer technology out to our staff, so that actually that's allowing us to function right now. So, attorneys are reviewing the cases as they come in, compiling discovery. The court systems are almost completely shut down, other than absolutely necessary things. So it's a lot of looking at what's coming in right now. We're meeting regularly and just making sure that everybody's on the same page. And when I say meeting, I mean Zoom meetings. They get this backdrop a lot from me. So we're meeting twice a week right now.
Thus far, how has the virus outbreak impacted crime here in our county?
Overall numbers I would say are down, but depending on what kind of case you're looking at. I have a Wednesday morning call at 10 a.m. or a Zoom meeting with all the chiefs and the sheriff and Captain Ballin of the state police. We had Chris Schuyler on this morning because obviously there's the number of overdoses that are happening right now, whether they be fatal or non-fatal. But we discuss every Wednesday just the trends we're seeing. And what we are seeing is an increase in domestic violence that's quite substantial. We're also seeing drug use and overdoses go up. And we're also seeing a number of transports that are 941s of people that need mental health assistance. So we've seen a pretty big uptick in those three areas, which obviously isn't a surprise, considering that people are at home under a lot of stress. There's a lot of anxiety. It's all understandable. My primary concern, obviously, is our domestic violence cases.
Yeah, I would imagine that's probably a big one, as you mentioned, with people now being at home, especially if they are there with their alleged abuser, I would imagine. What type of resources does your office and just in general police agencies provide for those people who maybe are stuck during this time?
Obviously, the concern is that people aren't reporting offenses that occur. And a topic that we discussed this morning with Chris Schuyler, obviously, is child abuse as well. Because, usually those offenses get reported by school teachers, people, their friends, other people outside of their immediate family home. But no, for our domestic violence victims, I put something up on our county Facebook page early on during this to encourage them to call 911 if there's an issue. We do have victims coordinators that are available in my office by telephone. We have 3 victims coordinators that are tasked to assisting victims, and they're available for help and direct people to services. And there are services out there for people who are being abused, and I just want them to know that and encourage them that if they find themselves in a situation where their physical safety is at risk, please reach out. Even, obviously if it's immediate, you're calling 911, but you can always reach out to my office. The phone number for my office is 753-4241. But we have people whose job is to help folks who are victims.
Now, this is National Crime Victims' Rights Week. Your office sent out a letter earlier this week talking about it. A time to raise awareness for long-lasting trauma that many would face following all sorts of types of crimes. In addition to prosecuting the illegal activity here, it seems like maybe the DA's office is built to help those victims. How does your office help those who maybe have to testify in a crime and just once they get through that reporting, how does what's in place?
Well, we can direct them to services, treatment services, psychological services to start to mend the damage that was done. Obviously, there's a victims compensation fund if there's any monetary losses, and really we just there's a wide network of things available for victims. They just need to reach out to my office. Law New York has a grant that our office runs, and they have a variety of legal services available to crime victims with collateral consequences, like maybe you're in a lease agreement with someone, or you want a divorce, or there's a variety of services that Law New York can provide under the grant that we've procured to assist our crime victims as well. So my people in my office are trained to point those crime victims in the right direction. And because the reality is the healing process that comes after being a victim of a violent offense, more in particular, is pretty substantial. And the services are there. It's just ask my people for help. Shannon and Pam are my two lead victims coordinators. Are they're there for them. So I hope they're reaching out if they need it, and my victims coordinators are there and ready to answer their call.
Would you say that that's the hardest part for victims, is saying, hey, I'm stuck in a hard place. I do need help?
Yeah, the stigma is that there's no way out. The thought is I'm stuck here. I don't have financial capability to leave. I don't have, maybe they don't have a job, and this the abusers, there's financial support. But there's a variety of reasons why people feel trapped, and they just don't realize that there are services out there designed to help them remove themselves from that abusive situation, that I would say are probably as on a whole underutilized, but they are there. And for those of you out there that are struggling, thinking that you can't get out, that it's just not possible, it is. If you're in an abusive relationship, it's possible to get out of that. The process, it's going to upend your normal daily life for a little while, but at the end of the day, you'll find yourself in a better situation than staying with someone who's abusive.
Now, in addition to domestic violence during this COVID-19 outbreak, we've seen a pretty good, and it's not good by any means, but an uptick in overdoses and people using substance abuses. What is the current state of that here in Chautauqua County? And for people who are struggling with that, what message do you have for them?
Gosh, I can't imagine the situation that some people have found themselves in. When you've lost your job, you have to stay home. You're dealing with the anxiety of making ends meet, not being able to see friends, family. There are crisis helplines out there. The county crisis hotline is 1-800-724-0461. And then there's a secondary number of 877-426-4373. And then there's actually a text line as well, which is 716-392-0252. And people, there are real struggles out there right now. And the overdose numbers that I've seen, I just got a report from my narcotics investigator, former chief of Fredonia Police, Brad Myers, and when we're at 40 since the New York pause began, and that's 40's overdoses, not necessarily death. I believe it's at least 6. It may be more than that. I'd have to get the final OD map numbers, but that's up. That's up a lot from compared to last year, and all those trends were moving in the right direction. That's the reason we had Christine Schuyler, our director of the Department of Health and Human Services, on our call today, just to kind of bounce some ideas back and forth of what can we do. One of the ideas pitched was potentially setting up a place where people can get Narcan. I mean, we're to that point where we're trying to distribute Narcan. I mean, we just, there's a real fear that people, especially as this drags on longer, are going to resort to using narcotics to kind of assuage their mental health problems, and the risk of overdose is greater right now than it probably has been in quite some time.
And we do know that several law enforcement agencies now do carry Narcan as they respond to places to try to help people. But I think important to note is if someone is having an overdose on whatever substance, there is a law in New York, if you can talk about that, that protects those who would call for help.
Yeah, the Good Samaritan law. I want to say there was a press release put out yesterday by the sheriff, Christine Schuyler, and Chief Snelling. But essentially what that Good Samaritan law is if you're calling 911 for assistance for someone who's overdosed, if you were using with them, you aren't going to be arrested for drug possession or paraphernalia possession. And the idea behind that law, and it was crafted quite some time ago, the idea behind that law was to promote people to call for help. So if you find yourself in a situation, an unfortunate situation where someone who you're with has overdosed and you're worried about finding yourself in trouble, that Good Samaritan law protects you. If you call 911 and authorities have to respond to help the person overdosing, that law is going to absolve you from responsibility. Now, that being said, we have a partnership with the U.S. Attorney's Office where, if we come across an overdose death, which we are continuing to investigate every single one, we are looking for the dealers who are selling these drugs to find them, turn their cases over to the U.S. Attorney's Office, because the mandatory minimums on selling drugs that result in a death is a 20-year mandatory minimum. And we are looking at these cases when someone is overdosing and dying, and we are looking to package these cases up and send them to the U.S. Attorney's Office. Now, that Good Samaritan law will protect the person who's with the person who's overdosed, and it won't protect the drug dealer who's out selling drugs on the street to these folks, leading to their overdoses. So I do want the public to know we continue to look at these cases in an effort and in our partnership with this U.S. Attorney's Office.
And I want to ask, too, once things start to reopen, I know yesterday Governor Cuomo talked about possibly taking a regional approach to reopening the state. When the courts are back open, do you think that it will be a challenge to try to get prosecuting back up again? And would we see a backlog?
Yeah, there's going to be a substantial backlog. For the public, the general public right now that isn't aware, the courts are essentially shut down, which means all the cases that were pending prior to March 17th haven't had anything done on them. They're still pending. And then every arrest that's come in since gets adjourned out to a point that's after the New York State pause date. I want to say arraignments for non-custodial defendants are being adjourned out to June. So when courts come back online, in addition to the caseload that existed at the beginning of March, we're going to have all of the cases that have happened since. There's going to be a flood of cases that my attorneys have to handle. It's going to be very difficult. That being said, they're in a position now where they're able at home to log on remotely to our digital case management system, review their cases, prepare discovery, so that when courts open back up, they're at least in the best possible position they can be in. But it is going to be difficult just in the sheer volume of the cases that exist when we come back. That, in addition to any felony that's being committed that normally has to go through a grand jury process, grand jury, we aren't meeting with the grand jury, so we aren't, felonies may be being arrested, but they aren't being presented to a grand jury. So what the challenge that presents is that at some point we have to get all of those cases into a grand jury, which regularly only meets once a week. So we're going to have to reevaluate the regularity in which the grand jury meets, maybe meet them 2-3 times a week until we clear this backlog up. And then the question is, when do trials begin again? When is the court system in the state going to feel comfortable bringing 100 people in for jury selection? I just don't know when that is. I don't know. I don't have those answers. So my staff, obviously that's a concern. The backlog is going to be a real challenge. I can tell you that I meet every other day essentially with the District Attorney Association on a Zoom meeting, and we're discussing these issues with the Best Practices Committee. I'm very fortunate that I've developed those relationships there where I can sit in on those and really get the insight of people who've been doing this longer than me, and people that work for DAs, that really have their finger on what's going on, and it's a useful resource. But everybody's struggling with the same thing, the uncertainty of when things are going to start, what that looks like. Those are real questions.
All right, Chautauqua County District Attorney Patrick Swanson joining us today on the broadcast. Sir, thank you for being here. Finally, again, can you just tell us the number for people to contact your office if they are in that domestic violence situation and they want help?
Yeah, my office number is 753-4241. And we have a legal secretary there every day that answers the phone. If it's something urgent, we can get them right in touch with a victims coordinator who are on call, working from home. So 753-4241 if there's a concern about your case, and you want to discuss it with my office or my staff.
All right, Chautauqua County District Attorney Patrick Swanson. Sir, thank you for your time and for joining us today.
Yep, thank you, Justin.
All right, now let's get a check of our weather forecast with Dakota.
Today is Earth Day, and so I decided to do a little something special for Earth Day today. This is the satellite composite that is on our Lynx radar system. So again, you can see the planet, yeah, but this is a Fox planet on our radar system. Let's give you a look at what Earth really looks like from space. This is actually the moon's shadow right there passing over Earth during, I believe it was the moon eclipse that occurred back in 2014. This was one of the satellites up in space. And Mother Earth, isn't she beautiful? Just please be kind to her. She's an old lady. Just please be kind. So again, planet Earth looking great, and happy Earth Day today. And getting into actually the weather here, talking about mental health issues, I think warmer days may actually help with our mental health. Well, we just do not have them. 15 days have been spent below average this month, where we've had a high temperature below the average for the day, and only 6 days have been above average throughout the month. And yeah, I mean, we're looking at where did spring go here. We only had one day over the past 7 days in the 50s. Statistically, every single one of these days should be well above 50 to near 60. Right now, at least we got some partial sunshine downtown on the News Now cam, 31 at noon hour, but look at this wind chill, 19 degrees when you factor in that healthy west wind at 20 miles per hour. My goodness. And we're just looking for spring. We can't find it. It won't stay long, though. The sun is out at times this afternoon. 2 storm systems will clip us, one tomorrow through Friday, and then another one that comes over the weekend. And the cold looks like it will stay here until May. The longer range pattern is really suggesting this. We're locked in to this cold air pattern. It's a cold conundrum. We can't solve it because we have this upper level ridging coming in, which is basically a blocking area of air here, this ridge, and this sends that jet stream dipping down into the eastern states, and we get wave after wave of cold air coming in. And so as long as we have this ridging here, we're not going to warm up anytime soon. And you can see the winds coming from our source region, north-northwest, and that actually triggered again Lake Ontario to generate its own little lake effect snow band this morning. But so far we're left with a few little spritzels of snow basically going out to the east. That's basically about it. Here's future scan through the day. The area should be mainly dry for today with the sun out at times, but it's still going to be frigid though. Temperatures down into the 30s. Tonight, here comes a storm system passing to our south. We may get into an area of sleet, especially early on tomorrow, and then get into a chance of all rain showers as we go into the afternoon. And then the rain will continue Thursday afternoon, and then Friday, the rain will turn a little bit more scattered in nature, but it should be mainly dry for some parts of the area. So the zone forecast here, temperatures feeling more like December here. Temperatures lower 30s across much of the area, but at least the sun will make it feel a little bit warmer. Let's give you the next 7 days of your life because we still have them yet to live here. 51 tomorrow, 48 on Friday, and again, scattered showers. The day should be mainly dry though. On again, off again rain on Saturday and Sunday. More widespread though, looking to be later in the day on Sunday. Monday, we're still cold into the 40s, and then we start to warm up again, at least briefly, early next week when we make it back to 54 degrees with at least some partial sun at times. Justin?
All right, Dakota, thank you very much. Want to leave you with this. Lovers of astronomy will have to keep their eye on the sky tonight because the Leardic meteor shower has been taking place since last weekend, And tonight, it peaks. So if you can, and you can see it out there, get out there and enjoy it. That's going to do it for us today. Of course, news continues 24/7 at WNYNewsNow.com. We're back tomorrow right here at noon. Hope to see you then.